something. Ain't a whole lot of things going in this bucket. Pressure washing, house, babysitting, right? Chick-fil-A, Carowinds. Y'all don't have no summer jobs? Oh, okay. At least you spent them on good cause. All right. People. I can hold the bucket for you.
They gave online.
Oh, okay. That's what it is. They use
paper money.
That's what it is. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Fix your face. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
You receive this money, and to those that want to give or did give, that you bless them and bless our families and bless anyone who needed a blessing. And amen.
Amen. Very good. All right, cool. Okay, y'all stand up for me.
How am I the oldest one in the room? I be
Right.
You gotta be better.
Listen. Okay.
I'm not really the oldest one in the room. I'm the
I gotta do something to wake y'all up. Let me think. We should let's see. How on beat are y'all? You said it depends on what we're doing. That does not sound very
right.
All right, okay. So I did this at a summer camp one time. We're gonna see if this works. Okay. Okay. All right, we're gonna start a beat, and then when we point to you, you have to add in a sound or beat to the beat.
Oh, snap.
Okay, David, he already out. Now, if you off beat, just kind of nudge the next person and be like, "Hey, can you help me out?" All right. It's gonna look so bad. It should be slow and fast. What y'all think? Slow. Slow first. All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Everybody clapping. Okay. Ooh, we all ready? Okay. All right. So I'll start it the first. Lord.
Do we all do it?
No.
No.
Y'all got it.
Okay.
We should speed this up. Okay, all right. Let's speed it up because it's.
We're gonna do the church rock now.
The way is throwing y'all off.
Okay.
All right, this already. Okay. Y'all can never speed it up.
Not the blood flowing.
Yeah.
I can see you ain't got no coordination.
Right. Know the truth.
I'm just saying, I didn't say no names.
I feel like we really don't need this mic.
Think the group right here?
Yeah, we're real close.
Right here. But what about the folks online? They gonna be able
That's what I was thinking about.
Oh, okay.
Just for it to reverberate.
Fine. Yeah, we do have y'all, so we do have a
There's two
YouTube
people.
channel that we stream to on Sundays. And I mean Wednesdays is on church channel, but whenever we're down here and that camera is on. So if you have friends or you have people that you know that aren't here or couldn't make it, and out of town and traveling, whatever, or if you want to go back and look at the message or, you know, get the scriptures or think about what we talked about, we encourage you to do that. We're also thinking of other ways that we can use the YouTube channel to where it's more fun for y'all to actually be there and engage there. So thinking about how you all spend your time on YouTube and things of that sort. Think about the types of content. So we not about to be gaming on there, so don't. That is not
no gaming price.
right.
Okay. I'm saying, Darius, sound
Right.
like a challenge. You accept? Okay.
Okay, well, I'll just give us an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. So all week long, all month long, what month is this? July.
Birthday.
Come on, 'cause there's
What's your birthday? July 28th. But almost.
right, all month. It's a celebration.
Yes.
Cool, yeah, we definitely. Anybody else got July birthday? Okay. When is yours? Oh, listen, y'all close.
Come on now. When's yours? Come on.
I don't know. I feel like May is the best month, but it's cool.
You get
See?
think that.
Yeah, no, I think it is because it's a lot of you know, you get the 4th off too, so.
You would, yeah, right. You would think, you know, that May is pretty cool.
You got Mother's Day in May too, so we got a lot of holidays
You have
in
to
May.
share a lot.
Yeah.
So that makes
For us,
sense.
it's
Yeah.
May is Palmer.
Right.
May is Palmer.
May is what's up with July is hot though.
July is hot, but it's not.
Right. You know, I don't know, you do something. Pray and sprinkle it. You know.
And you know, y'all can believe what you want to believe. It's okay.
It's good.
So July is actually, it's not Mental Health Awareness Month. There's another word that's in it. It is a Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's another word that's in it. Anyway, all this month we'll be talking about mental health. Okay, and next week and the following week, the next 2 weeks, we want you all to be, well, all month you're going to be down here, but especially the next 2 weeks because we're going to have a special guest that's going to come in. He's a therapist. And we're going to watch a couple of videos about anxiety and also about suicide. Yes, thank you. And then we're going to have a discussion about that. And then the other 2 Sundays, this being one of them, and then the second to last Sunday before y'all go upstairs, we'll be down here with you all just kind of having general discussion surrounding mental health and questions you might have, or even helping you to think of questions that you can ask our guests that are going to be here the next 2 weeks, okay? At the end of the month, we're going to kind of break y'all up and have some more meaningful discussion, but it'll be more intimate. Because I know talking in a big setting like this can sometimes be intimidating. But more than anything, we want you all to know that we're here for you when you have questions, when you may need guidance, or just don't know how to express something to your parents in a way that makes sense or that in a way that they'll understand. All of us care about you deeply and want you to have healthy mental health. Now, none of us are Dr. Fields. He's not a therapist either, so it don't really matter.
Right.
He's not certified. So, right. So we might be at his level because he just get paid more to do it. But more than anything,
Over that dollar.
yeah, right. I wish I could come across Oprah at some point. I got a couple ideas for you that can get me
Let
on
me take you
TV.
down when we talk about it.
Right.
I'm just saying. No, we go all.
You can't go to Chipotle.
I don't know. Yeah, she don't seem like a Chipotle type.
She
chick.
doesn't at all.
She seems like she could appreciate it to Big Mac.
Maybe. You're right. They take it back. You will all be paid.
No, it's not in my head.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, you know it's
Okay, so I have a question for you all. Who is, I know a lot of you all watch sports, football, basketball. Who's the most fit athlete in your opinion? Most fit. Yeah. Like, who's the best example of an athlete? LeBron. In NBA, King James. And all the, you'll have to help me out. I don't. Okay. Yeah, they soccer players.
yeah, they
Fast.
the ultimate.
So I don't watch. Surprise! I don't watch sports. But I do know. So there's this guy I know named Jason Statham. He's an actor. You may know him. He was in the Fast and the Furious movies. Anyway, Transporter. He has like 2% body weight because he plays soccer. 2%. Like he body fat. My bad. He plays soccer. He don't eat cauliflower and turkey. Like he's really fit. Why do you think LeBron, is it because of stats? That's what he does, right? How he performs.
He just has like a football built body, but
He's physically fit. Okay. Same thing for Ronaldo, right?
Yeah.
He's physically fit. So who, by show of hands, who is the most mentally fit person that you all know? I'm gonna say to you, it's hard you can't answer that question. Because you never know who's mentally fit, right? You can see the physical fitness of people because that's tangible. I think the mental fitness is what we are not aware of, and I think that's what's important. Even the most, I think about, and again, I'm a movie buff, so I think about great people like the incredible Robin Williams, great actor. You've seen Mrs. Doubtfire, you've seen Aladdin. Unfortunately, he took his life. You think about artists who you think have it all together. They have money, they're amazing people, but you don't know their mental fitness. You don't know their mental health because you can't see that. That's the intangible. I say all that to say because I think about the importance of how, hopefully, God willing, we will achieve a point where if we can establish where we are, health-wise mentally, but we can also help other people because you just never know, you know? So I kind of just wanted to make that point before we got too far because that'll be the point of this whole mental health awareness because it'll help us be more aware of the signs of people who are not mentally healthy because you can't see that. We can see LeBron, we saw Jordan, we saw Kobe, rest in peace, we saw, Emmitt Smith, but we can't see the mental health of some people, but, unless God gives you the gift of discernment, it's not easy to tell from this side of the spectrum. So, yeah. I never know how to.
You never know how to land. It's fine.
So yeah, another fact I think I looked up earlier is for you guys' age, for teenagers, 20% of teenagers have a diagnosable mental health issue, which can be alarming, but all of which, if not most of it is curable. So again, this is the opportunity that a lot of us may not know that whatever it is you're going through, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's, what's another type of short attention span, ADHD, bipolar disorder, a lot of these issues that you may have that you don't want to ignore, or you don't want to see in your friends and be like, oh, well, they just going through something. But we equip ourselves with the opportunity to help people that we see, help ourselves. I was conversing, I talked to my brother yesterday, Kyle.
Oh.
And we were talking about how I think one thing that you all have the gift of that I didn't have is health between us. Like mental health wasn't as put on the forefront of concern when I was coming up. If you are afraid of something, If you had short attention span, if you had ADHD, there was no diagnosis for it. So a lot of times you would be mistreated. Like in other words, if you were in school and if you had trouble studying in school, you had trouble reading, you had trouble paying attention, that was marked as behavioral. Like you almost got in trouble, or you almost always got in trouble because you may have had some type of disorder. And I thank God that you all now have platforms where it is now available for you to acknowledge what issues you may have, that people can say, hey, I recognize that, and there is help for that, as opposed to you're going to detention, or you're getting suspended because you can't seem to pay attention, or you're not answering, or you have anger issues. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for that. Like I said, me and Kevin, we didn't have the opportunity to say, okay, there's a counselor that can talk about mental health when we were in school. It was like, no, you either get these grades right, get suspended, or you might even get put in a special class. And and then they didn't even assess what your issues were. They were just like, all right, we're just gonna dial back your education because we don't know how to deal with you. So, yeah.
It's interesting you say that. So it's interesting you say that, Kerry. So ultimately, I felt like that happened to me. So when I was younger, I was categorized as learning disabled, or LD. And because of that, I was put into a special class. And I was basically in this class until 3rd grade. Then, I don't know, something happened. And what happened, I was actually put into advanced classes. And I excelled in the advanced classes. So, to me, thinking back now as an adult, that during that time, I was either bored or they just didn't know how to give me a space to be able to learn. So, and another thing I was thinking too was that just a show of hands, you don't have to go into detail, but how many of you have talked to a therapist before? Okay. All right. And I was just kind of wondering that because I know even like Darius was saying before, when I was younger, no therapist. I think I talked to a counselor, and this was only because at the age of 8, my mom actually died of a heart attack. And that was the only time I had actually talked to anyone in that type of vein. But prior to that, no, nothing, no one. But now I think even as an adult, I have a therapist. So I'm in therapy. I talk to this person at least once a month, maybe twice. Basically things that are going on in my life, things I'm dealing with at work, or at home, or just, we have a lot of moving parts. So I'm married, got kids, I work full time, got a nonprofit, we have a real estate rental company. So it's a lot of moving parts. And sometimes you can get to the points where you get overwhelmed with things. And I had to realize that, hey, maybe I really need to talk to somebody. So that's what kind of prompted that for me. You know, and I want to stress to you that just because you do talk to someone, that's not a bad thing. Just because you're in therapy, that is not a bad thing. I know a lot of times in our faith, we say, I'll just pray about it, right? Just pray about it, you'll be okay. God will work it out. And I sincerely believe that. At the same time, I believe that God has placed people in our lives and placed us, given us resources to be able to tap into. And I'm a firm believer in tapping into those resources.
Okay. To piggyback off Kevin, how many of you all take ice baths? Do y'all take ice baths?
Ice bath?
Ice baths. How often do you take ice baths?
athlete, probably.
Yeah, athletes.
Once every 2 weeks.
You play sports, right?
Yeah.
What you play?
Basketball, football.
Somebody else raise their hand? You take ice bath how often?
4 days, twice
Twice a month, play basketball? Okay. How many of you all get adjusted?
That he goes to chiropractor.
Go to a chiropractor? Okay. How many of you all get professional massages, like deep tissue massages?
I don't think I'm due.
How many of you all play? How many of you all play for a team? A sports team. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The point I'm trying to make to you is, so if you all notice, he has been through a lot of physical therapy because he does something that is physically taxing. That's physical therapy, right? Like Kevin was saying, he goes through a lot of mental therapy because what he does requires a lot of is mentally taxing. I'm saying all to say there's nothing wrong. Just like physical therapy is essential for your mental health or your physical health, just like mental therapy. The more you understand when you have a lot of things going on in your life, it's okay to have therapy. You need to be you need that ice bath. You need to be readjusted. And some of you all are familiar with it, despite the fact that you may have things in your life that are mentally taxing, that are emotionally taxing. They understand it because they know they have been put in a place where they're saying, okay, for you to continue to do this successfully, you need to endure this type of physical therapy. It's not just exercise. You have to condition your body to be able to handle whatever it is that your body is enduring with what you do. And so I say all that because we want to change the stigma of mental therapy. I know when I was younger, when somebody said I'm going to a therapist, that meant something was wrong. And not that this was just an added incentive to your life of how to condition your mental space. I say all that to say we want to end the stigma of mental therapy being bad. It's a good thing. Some of you may have already known that, but I really press that home because, again, it's much more prevalent aside from this month, but in general, that therapy is a good thing because it's needed just as much mentally as it is physically. This is your oil check. This is your changing the oil filter. This is just assessing where you are mentally. A lot of people that I admire, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of stand-up comedians, and they go to therapy because they need someone to kind of give a litmus test of where they are, where their head is. Like, okay, I need a third-party perspective to know if I am okay. I'm not sleeping well, or I'm having these thoughts, and they just need a professional, just like kinesiologists are people who give you massages. When you watch football or basketball, you see people on the side getting their legs massaged, or they're checking their ankles. Those are the physical therapists that are needed for them to handle what their body has to endure. And just like with psychiatrists, just like with, I think with counselors, and some people even in the church who are saying, they are here to kind of assess where you are in life and give a perspective of where you can get help. So know that mental therapy is, especially nowadays, is needed. It's needed. It's a blessing for anyone today to say, I don't need any therapy. Even if it's just to say, go in just to see how you're doing. As I've gotten older, my wife has reminded me that you need to get checked up. I didn't get checked up at all. Like, I was like, I'm fine. Going to the doctor. Just every year you get your checkup from your doctor. Do it. Don't wait till it's too late. But I was like, why should I go? I think I'm fine. Meanwhile, he's like, yeah, your blood sugar's a little high. You can get a little bit more fish. My knee has been clicking forever, but I can still walk. You know what I mean? But then, God forbid, I get to a point where I don't assess this issue in my physical body, and now it's too far gone to be repaired. And I don't want any of us to get to that place mentally where it's like, that this issue is too deeply rooted for me to assess. I could have nipped it in the bud when I was younger, but I waited until I had a nervous breakdown, and now I'm going to a doctor like, help me, give me something. And then, then they have to go to deeper measures. So just, see therapy in a much brighter light than what you did before.
We all in tune with each other. So, to Darius' you all, raise your hand, you go to the doctor. Your parents take you to the pediatrician every year, right? At least once a year. I'm sorry, we don't go to pediatrician? A doctor for kids? Y'all don't go to a doctor for kids? Y'all go to grown folks doctors? Maybe y'all go to like a general, oh, excuse me, the men in the room, like, no, I go to a regular general practitioner. The point is, you just go. You show up when your mom and dad tell you.
Right.
So you go to the doctor, and do you wait till you're sick to go? Sometimes, right? Sometimes, if it's in between your regular annual doctor physicals, you get a cough, you get a cold, especially nowadays, you try to find a doctor to go to. But there's a level of health and wellness that's called preventative health. Y'all heard of that before? All right, so I'm gonna school you. So there's a few different levels of health, right? Or taking care of yourself. You can either be proactive, right? So you go out, you go to the doctor regularly, even when nothing's wrong. You go to the doctor, get checked out, so they can tell you, yep, you checked all the boxes, everything looks good. Like Brother Darius mentioned, they might say, oh, my blood sugar's a little high, I need to change the way I'm eating. That is, it's like secondary, right? You go to the doctor first when everything's fine. That's preventative, primary care, right? When you go and your doctor says, let me do some screening, right? Let me ask you some questions. Let me check and see how you're eating, how you're sleeping, what your movements look like. I want to keep it right? So the doctor's going to ask you those things. They're going to test different things. They're going to check your blood, right? They're going to be looking for things. They're checking, and that's screening. That's like a secondary level of health care, okay? And then the third level, or tertiary care, is they've identified what you need to do, and they're putting you on a pathway of treatment, right? So, yes, it's all good for us to go to the doctor when we're sick. That's what they're paying for, right? But there's also that level of, ain't nothing wrong with me, I just gotta get checked. This is something where physical health has come a long way, where, you know, your doctors, your schools, everybody telling you you're supposed to go to the doctor at least at one time. If you play sports, you gotta get physicals. Not because something's wrong, but you wanna be clear to play, right? How many of y'all know life is hard? Just a little bit? We've been through some things in the past few years, right? Like, I mean, as a millennial, I've seen some things. And then you all, what's y'all generation? Gen Z's? Good night. The generation. David don't know what his generation is. Okay. Right? You don't want to be cool. But the point I'm trying to make is, and I think what you've heard each of us say, is it's important that not only for our athletes, that you know you strain yourself physically, right? Conditioning your body, and as a result, you do physical therapy, right? But that's still kind of secondary, right? Because if you weren't playing, you probably wouldn't do that ice bath because it's painful, right? But then there's another level of awareness, of prevention, right? It's important when you have access or the means, and I think that, you know, as Darius was saying, and as Kevin was saying, as a society, we're doing better with access. You have greater access to people that can offer counseling, can offer therapeutic services to you. But just your own awareness of where you stand. You check in with yourself and say, how am I feeling today? Or do you just keep pushing through every day? Like when you wake up in the morning and you grumpy, people call it getting up on the wrong side of the bed. Do you take a moment to take stock and say, how am I really feeling in this moment? Like, I've had some really hard things happen in this past week. How am I feeling right now? Am I okay? What are my thoughts? What kind of things am I hearing myself say to me? Right? Like, do you take that time to really check in with yourself? Because if you don't, there are circumstances where, or situations where you can put yourself regularly with someone who can do that for you, right? That's where counseling comes in. That's where therapy comes in. But ultimately, I think even as we continue to have these conversations about anxiety, specifically about, suicide prevention and things like that, you have to have an awareness of where you are, right? Like, if you never know what it feels to be good, how do you know when you're doing not good? You get where I'm going? Now, I'm hoping I'm not talking too, superficial, but, you have to take a moment to just kind of say, I've been sad. Like, out of the past 5 days, I've been sad every morning, like 3 out of those 5 days. Like, I'm crying a lot more than I usually do. Maybe I'm not where I should, maybe I should talk to somebody. Like, you have to do it because honestly, if you can smile, something y'all will see about Mr. Kevin, he smiles all the time, right? And it's contagious, so I smile quite often now too. But because I present that way to you, you may never know that I've been having a terrible week. And especially in the house of God, saints, it's like a sign of weakness for you to be like, this week totally down. You see people raising their hands in praise and worship. You don't know why their tears is falling. That's all fine, well and good. What about those people that sit there quiet? Like Darian said, you don't know the state of someone's mental wellness. You never know. And it's not your job to know where everybody else stands. What I'm trying to say to you all right now is take stock of where you are. It's okay to take a moment and be like, okay, how am I? Am I doing okay? Have I had some thoughts that I might need to talk to somebody about? You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to know how to fix it, but just having the awareness of, I don't feel like myself. Maybe I should talk to somebody. Do all of you have somebody in your family or your circle that you can trust to kind of say if you're not feeling like yourself? Maybe, yes or no? I mean, if you don't, then I would encourage you to find that person. Maybe it's a good friend, right? Maybe it's your BFF. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's your third cousin. Find that person. You know you have us, right? We're here. Pastor Josh is themom.com. Find them on Sunday. But what I'm telling you is it's important because who do troubles and stressors wait for you to get to church on Sunday? Can it happen on Tuesday? Is somebody be picking on you and antagonizing you all day Wednesday, and you just get to a point where, God, I don't, how, why? That can legit happen. It happens. I know I'm the bomb right now, but I used to get picked on. You know what I mean? And if I hadn't had people in my life that I felt like I could trust, that could help me see a reflection of who I truly was, whatever I was hearing, whatever I was telling myself or other people were telling me that was negative, I might actually believe it. And so, I know I've said a few things, but really it's important to me that you all understand that it's important that you check in with yourself. It's really, really important. And, I'm hopeful that as we have the opportunity and we have a therapist down here, think about some questions that would, maybe how you help a friend. And you can always, if it's for yourself, frame it like I know somebody who, right? But take the opportunity when you have access to people like that, professionals, to be able to say that. And I'm telling you, as a nurse, I'll come into a room, Sarah, tell me, how have you had any headaches? You been feeling okay? Any fevers? Oh no, everything's fine. I'm fantastic. I leave the room, the doctor comes in. So, I see you're doing good. You sleeping well? Well, doc, honestly, tell you the truth, no, I'm not. Right? So I'm coming to you. I care. I'm asking you, but you don't trust me. I mean, you trust me, but I'm just saying, maybe you don't trust me. Find a person that you can trust to be your true, authentic self. And that, there's so much freedom in that, but also it gives you a space of safety. So yeah, check in with yourself. That's important.
But that wouldn't be, I thought you
No,
said,
that's
no,
cool.
that wasn't wrap it up, B. Okay, so I wanna pause to let you all know that this is not just listen to us talk, okay? This is free flowing discussion where you all are welcome to ask questions, and if you don't have an answer, we'll find an answer for you, okay? And so to get y'all talking a little bit, we're talking about mental health, and we hear people say that all the time. What is mental health? How would you all define mental health? Go ahead.
When you're really stressed out mentally.
When you're stressed out mentally, okay, that's an example. What is mental health? Major with the brilliant answer. Yes, the health of your mental state. Yes. All right. Go ahead.
I think it's the state of like how you're feeling, and like your thoughts just daily, or it could be in a situation, just how you respond mentally.
Yeah. That's a great answer. So mental health, it encompasses three things. Okay. Our psychological well-being, our emotional well-being, and our social well-being. Psychological, emotional, social. So in other words, how we think, how we feel, and how we interact with others. How we think, how we feel, how we interact with others. And I don't want us to, like, when we think about mental health, we always think negative. Like someone who is crazy or depressed or deranged or has something that is all the way to the extreme wrong with them. But joy has to do with our mental health. Happiness has to do with our mental health. It's not just the bad things that have to do with that are an outward expression or outward reality of our mental health. Obviously, we want you all to be on the positive part of that. But when you all are thinking about knowing now that mental health encompasses social, emotional, and our thoughts, how we think, I want you all to give me some examples of things that might affect your mental health. What are some things that it could be as general or specific as you want? Okay, I'll start. Lack of sleep. Yep, you can just say it out.
People you're around.
Ooh, yes. That's direct correlation to relationships. The people you're around can affect your mental health. What else?
What you see.
Say again?
What you see.
What you see. Okay. Yeah. Both our like book smarts and Bible smarts will tells us about how we are impacted by our senses. Right? If you are laying down and you smell baking bread in the air, it would like, wait a minute, or bacon. Wait a minute, it's time to get up. Somebody is cooking breakfast. Okay? You smell something was hit your senses and it caused you to physically react. Same thing when we see things. If you were to see an accident, or Mr. Darius on the way over here, he's the animal whisperer. He saves turtles. I don't know if I ever told y'all how he saves turtles.
No.
Yeah, he's the one that'll stop in the street and pull the turtle, move the turtle out the way.
All traffic. All traffic.
He will block all the traffic. It's very sweet, but it annoys me.
Yeah.
So on the way to church, we saw a baby deer that had gotten hit by a car. And he stopped mid-conversation, we were talking about something totally different. He's like, oh, I wish I would have saw that. Because he was thinking about how now mama deer doesn't have a baby deer anymore. Okay, and so he saw something that triggered a response, probably because he's a father, to where he felt that really deeply. So sometimes we can see things that have absolutely nothing to, we think have nothing to do with us. This is not going to be a topic of conversation with this, but maybe one day it will be. This is how watching lewd things on TV, listening to violent songs, lewd meaning like sexually perverse, This is how, put your phone up for me, please, sir. Thank you so much. This is how, take a note. It's notes. If you were taking notes, you're good, sir. I just want to make sure y'all not getting distracted. Speaking of distracted, you know, because I got this pregnancy brain. Anyway, what I'm saying is that we can see certain things and be affected by it in our physical bodies. What are some other things that can affect our mental health? We had people who are around, the things we see. Say it loud for me. People that can physically damage you. Yeah, physical abuse can affect your mental health. What else? Trauma. Give me some examples of trauma.
Chipping in the cafeteria.
What?
Listen, no, that's a very small thing. Yeah, I still remember when I fell in elementary school. Listen, because the whole cafeteria got to erupt. Why?
Listen, hold up. This is a lot more severe, but so I won't say anybody's name. They got stuck on a roller coaster once.
Oh,
that has now developed a phobia, which is a mental, not a disorder, but a phobia is a mental diagnosis that you can have. So I understand that you can have an experience that's so traumatic that it can prevent you from doing a certain thing, which can inhibit you. I don't know how many people that were like, look, I drank some water and it went up my nose, and from that point on, I won't get into a pool no more. So as minuscule as it may seem, something as traumatic as embarrassment, as embarrassment can cause you to what they call snowball to where it'll develop a phobia. So while y'all laugh, there's some truth to it. And like my wife is the example. I understand, like me, I'm like, oh, things happen every day. But I don't know what it's like to be in a situation where you feel as though that your life is in danger. Or something as so simple as I tripped in front of the entire cafeteria and it was so traumatic that now I would no longer eat in the cafeteria. Yeah. Those things exist.
Yeah, and so this is a good point. I'm glad that you said that, because we have to be mindful of not minimalizing the feelings of others. Darius was talking about me. I'm the person that got stuck on a roller coaster. I was in college, and I went to Kings Dominion in Richmond, and got stuck on the incline. So I'm with family members who are unfazed by getting stuck on a roller coaster, and so they're joking and they're playing around. Meanwhile, I am bawling, crying. I'm 21, 22, bawling, crying, and thinking like, okay, they're not going to back this roller coaster up. So now that means that we have to finish this roller coaster without it, we need a little bit more momentum, I'm thinking. So the whole time, I legit thought I was going to die that day. Like, no joke. I thought, like, this is it. I'm not going to live to see my college graduation or anything else. But those around me were totally unaffected by it. And I don't know why. I think it was because I was not in control. I had no way of knowing what was really happening. I didn't know the details. I was out of control in that situation to where it brought about that deep fear. I can recognize that now, later in life, where I've experienced more, I've assessed my thoughts and emotions more, I've assessed how I was raised more. But when it comes to how people respond in their thoughts, in their emotions, in their relationships with others, we can't gauge that off of our own understanding. And this is why self-assessment matters so much, because you have to be willing to kind of give yourself those, ask yourself these internal questions of why you are going through the things that you're going through. Why do I feel, all right, here, everybody look down at the ground. Y'all have to look at each other because you're about to raise hands, all right? Okay, so raise your hand if you have ever been anxious before a test. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever lost a loved one. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a car accident. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a fight. Raise your hand if you ever lost something that was really important to you and it never came back. You never found it. All right. Most of y'all putting hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. Let me think. Raise your hand if you've ever felt like not being around anybody. If you've ever felt like you just want to be isolated, you don't want to be bothered with anyone. Raise your hand if you just stopped talking for like more than a day to people. Okay, y'all can look up. So many times, all of those things are things that may be small in that moment or may seem small in that moment. But what if before every text you're anxious? What if every day you don't feel like being around somebody? What if you lost someone and you never cried? You just went on with about your life. Okay? We were talking earlier about COVID-19. You know, we went a whole year and a half of isolation, not being around people, and that affected folks in various ways. And it also forced us to spend time with ourselves. It forced us to spend time with our loved ones. You know, what if now you don't like your sibling because of how much time you spent together? What if now, you know, you're secretly wishing you had different parents because you experienced something during that time? Like these are real things. School shootings. We were talking about this the other day, and hopefully this will be something that we'll get into when we have our guests here. You know, school shootings was not a thing when we were in school. The most we did was have like tornado drills, you know, hurricane drills. Now y'all have to like learn how to get out of a building or where to go if someone were to break into your school. And I've even thought about that in here. The fact that has to enter my mind, okay, where are the exits in this room so that we can ensure that you all are safe if something were to happen. There's always someone right here, because if something were to happen, we need something. We had those walkie-talkies. If something were to happen, we have this preparedness about us, but then also it's like a different level of preparedness than we've ever had to have before. So we're going back again that we live in a different world. You all are experiencing a different type of world. I'm gonna stop talking now because I want y'all to ask some questions. All right.
What was the question you asked?
What things contribute to our mental health? I'll let you hold the mic, so when he's done, you can ask your question.
No, she go first.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask, how long were you on the roller coaster?
Oh. I don't know. Like, listen, it felt like hours. It was probably more like 10 minutes though. But some people actually this is another thing, some people actually got off the roller coaster and walked down the side because they were that afraid that they put themselves in more danger to escape the situation.
There you go.
Loud and proud.
Sleepy?
Okay.
All right, think about it.
Some more?
You don't have to say them right away. You want to talk later? Let's talk later. Okay? What are some, I keep forgetting the question that you asked.
What are things that contribute to our mental health?
What are some things that contribute to our mental health? I think there is an answer that everybody can say that they're afraid to say. I want to see if somebody can guess what are some things that can contribute. Insecurity, that is a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one, because I think everybody is insecure sometimes. Who could be responsible for your mental health? Or who can be a big contributor to your mental health?
Your parents?
Your parents.
Parents. Yeah.
I was thinking when Cicely was saying who or what, I immediately thought family. And I think that's appropriate and applicable to just about especially you all, because you all are directly affected by your parents, how you were raised. And I know that can be controversial, because that can be received as it's your parents' fault. While there is some truth to it, I do not want that to be the the quote to leave this room.
Very sad.
You are the reason why but I will say that, and the Bible talks about it all the time about generational curses, how it says the iniquities of the father pass down to the son. In a more, in the tangible world, I think about how, and I talk about this with my wife all the time, how our parents were raised a certain way, and so they only knew to raise their kids a certain way. Or, let's say, for example, we had some aunts, uncles, some grandparents that had 12 kids. You think about the dynamic of raising 12 kids, and it's just unfathomable. Or you think about, there was a time where showing love from a father to son outwardly was just not acceptable. And then you think about your father raised that way, and then he has boys. It's a lot of things that your parents may have experienced growing up that they are instilling in you. One, because they're not aware of it, and two, because that's all they know. I am an example of that. I learned when I became part of another person, when I married my wife, how much of my relationship, or lack thereof, was affected by my mother and my father. And even more so, it was based on how they were raised. It wasn't like, I'm going to choose not to tell him I love him until he gets married and have kids. That wasn't my dad's choice. It was a product of, he was never shown love from his dad outwardly. So, who's he to say, all of a sudden, we're like, you know what, I'm going to love my son. On the flip, I did, like my grandfather, how many of parents, this is going to be a tricky question, not a tricky question, but how many of your fathers, your grandfathers, kissed you men? Were you ever kissed by your father or grandfather? Is that weird? Did I find it weird? You be honest.
Some people say yes.
Okay. My grandfather kissed me all the time. That sounds tricky. Hear me out. When he would see me, he was not, he embraced me the same way my grandmother would.
Yeah.
When I saw them hug me and kiss me, he would kiss me on my cheek all the time. And then when I got older, I was like, when I was feeling myself, I was a teenager, I was like, ugh. Like, that's not, why is that bounded by women showing that affection? And that's a problem. I think that exposed the fact that they say, only women can show affection to men. And that's not true. I think even in the Bible, somebody, I don't want to misquote the word, but there is a father that kissed their son.
Yeah.
Was it?
He came back?
He kissed him when he came back, yeah.
Yeah, like that's not, I mean, my son's a toddler, but I kiss him all. I will not stop until he tells me to stop. And probably he would have to be out of my house before I do what he tells me to do. The point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of things that your parents may have instilled into you that may have caused you to be the person that you are now. Whether it's being affectionate to someone, whether it's opening up, whether it's being afraid to cry. A lot of those things you could have been raised around that you, again, this, like Lenice was saying, it takes a moment to sit down with somebody and be like, hey, is this okay? Am I all right? This might have happened because, my dad or my mom or my parents didn't or they didn't. These are some things that you should just lay out on the table so that can be assessed, because by your standards, everything that you've experienced to this point was okay. Everything that your parents taught you was the standard. Whether you didn't like it or not, no matter how much you went into your room, and started punching pillows and, talk about running away, that was the standard that was laid into your life. And then that becomes, all right, you get older, you're like, this doesn't feel right. So let me, I love my parents, I love both my parents so much. But I thank God that I was able to recognize some of the things that they were passing down to me. And not only say, okay, let me cut this off for sake of Haven and whoever's in there and my wife before I continue to pass that down. My dad loved me to life, but he knew that he was imperfect. And he tried his best to be like, look, I know I did it this way. Let's try to dial it back. Same thing with my mother. She was like, I wasn't the perfect mom, I was single. But you all may not have that opportunity to have your parents say, I did some things wrong, so let's try to fix it. But you all, each and every one of you will have the capacity to be like, there's some things wrong with me that could have come from my parents. I don't want to blame them, but I do want to end it here. And again, we want to take this opportunity now and moving forward to try to assess those things and be like, yeah, they didn't do that. it's cool, I forgive them, but I want to cut it off here. So take that time to think about what are some things that I don't like that I experience at home, and then we take it from there. I won't go into the next step because I don't have the prowess to say you need to do this with your parents. I'm not going to do that. What I do want to do, like I said, the first step to solving the problem. It's rehab. The first step is acknowledging the problem. The first step. Anyway, the first step in finding a resolution is recognizing that you have a problem. And so take some time, think about where you are, talk to someone, and then take it from there.
All right, questions. Your turn. What? How can you be afraid to cry? He said, how can you be afraid to cry?
It's seen as it's weakness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you may have been taught to not cry, or you may not have seen other people cry around you. This sort of piggybacks off of what Mrs. Darius was saying. It's like there are times where you can be surrounded by people who act a certain way. Like I said earlier, what you see can affect your mental health. It can affect what you do. And so being afraid to cry, because when you cry, that's like the most vulnerable state that you can be in. One of the most vulnerable states that you can be in. And so not wanting to cry is a product of not wanting to seem weak, not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to let your guard down. And it's probably, not say probably, but one of the things that can contribute to that is because someone may have hurt you deeply in the past. And that's a defense mechanism now that you have started to display. All of this, like, it's gonna sound like we're repeating ourselves, but it all boils down to, you know, when little things build up to bigger things and bigger things and bigger things, before you know it, you know, you're 40 years old, you never cried, then you lose your mom and you can't function, you know? So, yeah, we want you all to get to a place where you aren't afraid to cry. Whether happy, sad, whatever. I'm someone who I feel very deeply internally, don't always outwardly express. Like, I can be straight-faced, and you my favorite person in the world. And it'll take me a long time, it'll take me a little bit before I outwardly express those things.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's all right. I've been mean by you this whole time. I like all y'all. Don't worry about it. I am not, people who know me can attest to this. I am not a mean person. So my resting face just looks mean.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a mean person.
I learned that in college about myself.
Right.
I'm trying to
we here. Listen, I had learned to, like, smile, or you're gonna have to teach me your ways. Because you know, I'll be elated inside.
Yeah, I can attest. My wife is a very loving, caring person, but a lot of times,
right?
Cards on the table. A lot of times, the amount of people that I've met my wife, and they be like, "I didn't think she liked me." It's like a good 80%. They would end up. Everybody at the end, they were like, "She's my best friend," but at first they were like, "Oh, that's funny." My mom, same way. I'm like, listen, just hear me out. Me being the direct representative, I'm like her attorney. Just hear me out. When we get home, she wants to spend all the money on you. But,
yeah.
You know, Gary, could I ask you a question? Are you afraid to cry? You're not, so you can cry in front of us right now. If you felt that. You couldn't do it. What would you do if you wanted to cry right now? Why? Okay, so you just don't feel comfortable crying in front of you.
And what would y'all do if you started crying right now? Laugh. Who said laugh? Somebody said laugh. Right.
I'm sorry, I just don't know how to deal with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
That's not. Yeah, you're
That's
okay.
an honest answer. Yeah, like you you would respond in a way that, because now you're uncomfortable and people respond different ways when they're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So I'm just laugh, I'm gonna crack a joke, you know, or there might be some people there might be one person in the room that has felt what he's feeling. Like, I know what it's like to cry in front of people, so I'm gonna go console him, or at least ask him what's wrong, you know? Yeah, excellent example of how one person can be going through something and the people around you don't know how to respond, and then you might respond in a way that makes it worse for that person. And that's another layer to the importance of this month and discussions like this, is that you can recognize, okay, Gabriel might be having a bad day. Let me not make it worse by expressing my discomfort in a way that is going to, you know, exasperate what he's going through. Yeah. Question?
I was just gonna piggyback on a couple of things you said, but one, you don't always have to know how to best fix it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have to be in a space where they feel like they can trust being vulnerable, being that open, or, you know, expressing themselves, and you're gonna be okay with them being that way. Maybe you don't have the answers, but that's what your friend is, right? Like, you know, you can go to your friend's hope, say whatever you need to say, because it's gonna stay with your friend. You trust that it's gonna stay with your friend. Or you can tell them you were angry about something that you know people would typically tell you shouldn't be mad about, but your friend's not gonna judge you, right? They're gonna take it, they're gonna, you know, and if it's a good friend, they'll give you wise counsel, right? So that's to the point of being able to express yourself that way, I think is really important. But the other piece is just knowing that being that person for someone that they can come to, you don't have to know the answers. Sometimes you just need to be able to have an idea of who you can go to get them an answer. You know, like I had some people have reached out to me before and like, hey, G, something's going on. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. But this is somebody you can go to, or this is a number they can call, or this is something they can do to try to get through this situation. You should be that person for somebody, but I go back to that point of you should find that person for yourself. Well, and so Gabriel saying that his mom likes to encourage him to express how he feels, but he doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't want to express how he feels.
Is there a reason? The reason why you don't want to your mom? To her or just in general? Okay.
How many of you all write? Have journals? So, and you may have heard me say this before. One thing, like when you're trying to, like, one thing that can be helpful when you are experiencing thoughts, feelings, whatever, and you don't know how to outwardly express them, or maybe you don't feel comfortable, you don't want to, is to write them down. A lot of times, like, I forget what show I was watching, but pretty much the prompt was that they asked the person to write a letter to the person they were talking to, and it helped them to be able to express their thoughts in a more clear and concise way. Don't underestimate the power of writing things down. The biggest thing is that you get it from up here and somewhere, and it can be in your prayers, it can be in your conversations with someone that you trust, like Ms. Denise was saying. It can be as you write things. But if you find yourself where you're not feeling comfortable expressing how you feel, or talking, or opening up, or you just really don't even, we need to get emotions real. Where you don't know how to quantify it. You don't know how to express it. You don't know how to explain how you're feeling. You just know that you're feeling a way that is different. When you find yourself going through those types of things, you want to get it out some kind of way. And if that has to be writing, write until you can start talking about it, or write it and then read it.
Or find a neutral party.
Right.
And sometimes talking to somebody like your mom or your dad about being angry about something they said or did, that's not gonna work. It's because it's going to make it, you gonna say some things, they gonna say some things, and maybe, that's not what the situation needs.
Yeah.
But find somebody that's neutral, like even, and y'all are older, but with my little kids, my 6-year-old, he's the little red-headed, brown-headed little boy, and he act up sometimes. He is way more emotional than my older child. And so sometimes I just have to tell him to breathe. Because ultimately, don't tell me what's in your head right now. I don't want to hear it. Just breathe, and then we'll get through it.
I come here all night not to pray or everything will be okay. And mentally, for me, I don't feel okay. I just cry, or I just stay in the room and listen to music. I don't even talk to nobody. I don't have people to talk to. And it's hard for me to talk to you because I get judged, or I just feel like nobody understands. And it's so hard. I've been talking to different people, but I want to be somebody. I can say, hey, can I talk to you, or can I call you? I want to talk to somebody on the phone and express how I feel. And sometimes I don't know how, I don't know how to feel when it comes to that. It's like everybody say, oh, you'll be okay, you can get through it, but I can't because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, don't have an answer, right? I don't want to come off as an authority, but what I will say is, what you can do is think about, like Ms. Sister was saying, though you might not have somebody you feel like you can talk to, right? Because you have people around you.
Yeah, it just, I don't like being judged.
You don't like being judged. You feel judged because you tell them something, they're gonna say something instead of, they're gonna try to fix it.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you got people in your circle that love you, and they think what they're telling you is to help you, but they want to fix it for you, right? Sometimes you just don't need it to be fixed. You said, maybe I just want to cry. Maybe I just want to say what's what I'm feeling, and just be able to put it out there. So I would offer you what Miss Sissy was saying, like writing. Have you tried writing about how you feel?
I don't like writing on handwriting is horrible. So
Okay. Do you have a recorder? Do you have a cell phone?
yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
that was memo.
I do. I don't do that.
You haven't tried it yet. Let's think about this. What's the word they call it? It's like instead of like I don't do that or I don't know, you use positive language.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
No, I can't think of the word. It's a term.
It's a term, yeah.
It's a term. It's kind of like positive reinforcement, but it's not exactly that. It's instead of saying like I never knew I don't know how to ride a bike. I can't ride no bike. Instead of doing that, you say I don't know yet, or I'm still learning how to. So you don't write because you don't like to write. You haven't yet done the voice memo thing, right? I encourage you to try one. Maybe you think none of them will work for you. Neither one of them. I don't like writing because I can't read. Maybe you don't need to be able to read. Like Miss Sissy, sometimes it's like when you talk to somebody, sometimes you just talking and get it out. You needed to come out of your head. Like journaling is something that like when Sissy said it, I'm like, I hate journaling. Because it means you have to be intentional about setting time aside to dump your brain. But I'm gonna tell you, it's some of the best night's sleep I ever get when I find the time to do it. Most of the time I don't make time, I'm just being G, that's real. I don't make the time to do it. But when I do, I can get the stuff out of my head, influence something out of me, and then I can make space for peace, right? So maybe that's what you can try. Like I know you're saying you don't like to write, you don't like to read it, you don't do the recording, but try one of them. I charge you to try one of them. If it doesn't work, we can go back to the drawing board. But try one of them. If you don't feel like you have anybody you can talk to that won't judge you, that'll just listen, that you can call and say, hey, I don't want you to say nothing to me. Just let me talk. If you don't have nobody like that, that's okay. We might can find you somebody like that. But in the meantime, write it down. You ain't got to read it, just write it. Put it on a piece of paper, fold it up. Just know that it's out of your head. Or try doing a voice recording. Try pulling up your voice memo app or whatever and just like record it. Record some TikToks but never load them. I don't know. Whatever it takes for you. But just do that to get it out of your head. And then maybe you get to a point where you can listen to it later and you can hear some common themes. And then you can process some things as you pray. You know, you ask God, you say those things and you write it down. Guess who ain't? You don't gotta read it. Guess who will? And he will send people to you to be able to minister to the thing that you need. Because he concerns himself with those things. Whatever's causing you to cry, even if you don't understand it, you can't process it in your brain. What's making you feel that way? I guarantee you I know somebody who cares and will not judge you. And it's hard because he's not right there. You don't feel him. You can't reach out and touch him. And you think, nobody's listening. I can't talk to anybody about this that won't judge me. He is always listening. And he will send you that person that you can have that tangible relationship with, or that way to be able to release it. It will come. And I'm telling you, I've been there. I have been where you are. I know later in the year we got some time for testimonies, and I'm trying to build up the courage to tell mine. People have been trying to tell my story all my life, but I have not done it because I'm scared. Okay? But I'm going to tell you, I've been there. You just got to try. Try God. Try God. And I'm not saying that in a super spiritual way. You know what I mean? Like real talk.
You had something. Oh, hold on, real quick. One thing I do want to say is thank you for that, for expressing that to us, and also letting any of you all know that exactly what she just did. That's where this space is all about. Because, and what we're not going to do is leave this room and talk about anyone who may have opened up in a way, or have side conversations about anything that may have been shared in a way that could be embarrassing or hurtful or harmful to whoever did that. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did, to open up about how she feels and something that she's going through. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. Now we know how to pray, and I think that'll also be, if you're able to be down here next week, that'll be a good conversation to start having as well with the therapist down here, to see what further insight he may be able to offer you that can be helpful. All right, go ahead, and then we'll go to Gabriel, and then probably gonna need to wrap it up.
I was just gonna say, I feel I'm very expressive, except sometimes, like, I know I have a problem where I intentionally hold back so other people can express how they feel, and I just felt like it was a problem.
I think it's an awareness. I think it's an opportunity. Because sometimes you can be very vocal, you're articulate, you can express yourself, and you know, but you also have that layer of awareness where I'm in a conversation with somebody. Like, let me say something, but then let me also give them space. Is that kind of what you're speaking to? Yeah. Or is it that you feel like you need to say some things that you just won't say? Or both? Both. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, this is where growth and maturity will help you to be able, there's a word called discernment that we talk a lot about, to where you'll be able to read the room, essentially, and know when to speak, when to listen. It's an art that even adults have not mastered. Mm-hmm. But it's at least great that you are self-aware enough to recognize that about yourself, to where I can be very vocal, and sometimes I feel like I may hold back. I think what you can start asking yourself is, before, when you feel that way, before you say something outwardly, to begin to kind of get some checks and balances in. Is this helpful? Or is this going to be harmful? Is it something that I really need to say? Is it something that if I don't say it, it's gonna be harmful to me? And because just because the other person is gonna like what you say, doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be said. It just means that you may wanna give a little more care and concern to how you say it, or where you say it, or when you say it.
Take the pressure off yourself.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to pray real quick.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Be like, oh Lord, I want to say this right now. Like, what should I? Lord, it's not, I should say. Just the right time, just the right place. Because sometimes that can be the Holy Spirit in you. It's like, say that. It's like burning in you. But then you know, you can talk yourself off of it. And I never want to do that to any of you. You are as you're developing your relationship with the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is giving you a word or something to say. I mean, it's never going to contradict the word. So if it's contradicting the word, shut it down.
Yeah.
But, you know, if your Holy Spirit is giving you something to say, maybe it's not for the group, maybe you pull that person to the side and you say it to them, you know, individually, but ultimately, you know, saying that quick prayer, God will guide you something.
Yeah, you still remember what you had to say. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, so next week, hopefully, y'all don't let me forget. There is something that Pastor Dwayne has actually talked about in a sermon as well, or it may be a Bible study. It's called an emotions wheel. And it's like a wheel of emotions. But it starts off with very simple, general emotions, and then gives you a range of other emotions that you actually might be feeling. So like you say, today I feel happy. And then it goes deeper and it gives you other words to use other than happy, because happy may not be exactly what you feel. It might be even something that's more or less than that, but that's the only, you know, when we say we feel good, I feel good. What does good mean? You know? Are you feeling excitable? Are you feeling anticipatory?
It's a big word.
Come on, you know.
And what that mean?
Don't do me like that.
You're
anticipating something, looking forward to something. You know, there are different types of emotions. So I think what we can get with Pastor Josh to do is to print an emotions wheel for all of you all, so you can kind of have that in your back pocket, so you can start to begin to express how you really feel, and use words beyond basic, you know, good, bad, happy, sad, okay, you know, whatever. But thank you for expressing that. I know we have to pray. Well,
Yes. I'm gonna see what you said. Action item. And I thought about this just now. If you take a moment to write down, we'll do this another time. I'll come back to that. But really take advantage of the prayer request wall, guys, too. If there's something that you like, I get mad when I do this, can you pray for this? I want to remind you all that we do have people in the prayer team that look at this wall and they pray for things. So at the very least, you can always write anonymously. You don't have to put, God knows who the prayer team is praying for. If you want someone to add a little extra sauce on their prayer for you, you can write on a sheet of paper anonymously and post it to that wall, and people will pray for you.
yes, absolutely.
Want to make a question about it?
Yeah, matter of fact, we just use the time and offering box, the questions you might have. So if you have questions, go ahead and do we have stickers in there? Or a sheet of paper?
We might have some stickers like this.
Pull it out of the composition.
Right, listen. Or if throughout the week as you sit on what we discussed today and questions come up, we'll have a question box for sure next week that'll be here in the room.
That might be the wrong door.
That's the
Yeah.
one.
I think that would be good to talk about. While we're doing that, I'm gonna I gave the mic, but you know. He's like, "Nah, I ain't have that." All right, cool. I'm gonna wrap us up with a scripture, and I actually want y'all to put this in your phones, the reference to the scripture, so that you can read it all week. All right. How many of y'all keep promises? Just maybe. Okay. Oh, I can't trust you.
She kind of like, that's honest.
I don't either. If I make a promise, it's one thing. If I make a promise to you, that means I'm gonna keep it. If I'm iffy on it, I'm not gonna say it. How many of you all can promise me that you will read this scripture at least 2 times this week? Twice. All right. All right. Right. Don't break my heart now. It would even be great. It would bless my soul if next Sunday somebody knew it by heart. But it's going to be Zephaniah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like what? That's a book in the Bible. Yeah. Zephaniah is a prophet. Zephaniah is in the Old Testament. Okay. Chapter 3, verse 17. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. All right, and it says, "The Lord your God in your midst, the mighty one, will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing." And actually, I really even like one line up from that in verse 16. It says, "Do not fear." But the reason why I chose this scripture is because it's pretty much a reminder of how God cares about us, how God delights in us. Okay? How there are times where even when we might feel lost, forgotten, overlooked, misunderstood, at the end of the day, the God of the universe, the creator of your body and soul, knows you more than anybody else. And we can have lots of failed relationships. We can have people who mistreat us. We can have situations that happen in our lives from an earthly standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, we know that God never forgets about us. And so when we root our minds in that first and foremost, those, I'm not saying they go away completely, but they can lessen the feelings that nobody loves me, nobody understands me, nobody hears me, I don't have anyone to go to, nobody cares. Those thoughts start to get more and more faint, the more and more we can center our thinking on the fact that God truly cares about us. What's our scripture? All right. Y'all can read whatever version you want twice this week, okay? All right.
377.
I have a New King James version. Yeah, but I really like when I study. I study using ESV. Pastor Josh likes
Old
it.
Testament. It's kind of long.
ZEPHANI.
I'll pull it up.
NAH.
No, you had it right.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Darius, you want to? I know we need to pray. Wait, but I thought you said we first.
Okay, so we're closing out. I hope you all took notes. I hope you all will be here for the remainder of the week. So we're going to close out in prayer. However, well, he's not here right now, but I believe the young man Dorian and his family are traveling to Puerto Rico. Pastor Johnson did not give me all the specifics on it, but he did charge us to pray for him and his family and their travels. So we are going to.
They're going on a mission trip.
I assume so. Yes. So they're probably July. Yes. So they're going. He is going with his family on the mission trip to Puerto Rico. So we want to pray for them and their family. We'll talk more about mission trip later. But does anybody want to pray us out and include Dorian and his family in the prayer? Anybody feeling in the spirit to pray. Like Major's always down to pray every time. I commend him. But that's not mean you can't do it, you can do it. Yeah. Pray. Please. Oh, you can pray for us and then just pray for the next time. Yeah, the minister, yes.
Father God, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you for bringing us all here today to learn about mental health, Father God. I pray that you will help us to gain understanding, Father God, of our mental health and how to help others with their mental health, Father God. I also pray for the Puerto Rico mission trip, Father God. I pray for Dorian and his family and all families going on this mission trip. I pray for traveling mercy and grace. Father God, that there will be a hedge of protection for the families going on this trip, that what they're doing with Father God, I pray that the message will be sent. Pray that it will be done with excellence and honor. And then we start praying.
Amen. Thank you, Major. All right, guys.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all.
We'll see you next week, okay? If you have questions, we can't get in the room. Just
Oh, yeah,
record.
that's-
Yeah.